The recently launched 4060 GPUs were a clear case of how Nvidia tried to get away by selling the 50 class cards for the price of 60 class GPUs. It didn't work, so Nvidia tried again and recently launched the 4060 Ti 16GB edition, thinking that it can persuade some gamers for more VRAM. However, things were already off before the card even launched, and I find this one so bizarre that I fail to understand what stopped Nvidia from taking back its decision to launch the 16GB model. When the 4060 Ti 8GB model was officially launched, it was declared as one of the worst, if not the worst GPU of all time, as it hardly outperforms the 3060 Ti and still costs a whopping $400. Since then, Nvidia went off to a different route and decided to launch the 4060 before the 4060 Ti 16GB card, as this was saying that launching the 16GB model doesn't deserve an official launch. Almost no reviewer was sent a review sample, and thus even after the launch we cannot see any third-party reviews on websites or even tech channels. We instead saw that Nvidia did not want to send the cards for independent reviews and had no intention of releasing the latest drivers before the launch. This went to a level where not only AIBs were hesitant to make custom models for this card, but as per some reports, the 16GB model did not even reach some of the biggest retail stores for the sale. As per Tom's sources, not more than 10,000 total units of this card have been supplied for the whole of North America, and some retail stores were not even aware of this card's launch. This is a clear indication of what Nvidia already knew what is wrong with this GPU, and it was not hard to predict that in the first place. When Nvidia announced the 4060 Ti 8GB model, it also shared the performance numbers of the 16GB edition. At that time, I already made a video comparing the two editions from Nvidia's own slides, and the 16GB model was not even performing 1% better than the 8GB edition. This has been just confirmed by the latest MSI testing of this card, where out of 6 games, the 16GB model loses to the 8GB one in 4 games. And even if we take this as a margin of error, it shows that the 16GB of VRAM doesn't even have any advantage whatsoever in the most important titles like Hogwarts Legacy. And the sole reason for this is the absence of any specification improvements over the 8GB model. The only way the 16GB of memory would have benefited the card was to have a 256-bit memory bus, but that still doesn't justify its price tag of $500. For this price, the card should not only have a bigger memory bus width, but also more CUDA cores and higher clock speeds. But Nvidia still insisted to launch it without any improvements, despite knowing that what happened to its 4060 cards. And this is pure arrogance, because not only it refused to cancel this or lower its pricing, it simply refused to send the samples to reviewers just to save itself from more embarrassment. What it will now try to do is get the 16GB model to infiltrate the market slowly, so that it can be sold to naive people. This is perhaps the lowest a company can stoop in order to sell its terrible products, but sadly there are people who will still buy it, calling that this card is getting so much hate for no reason, and this is actually happening to the 4060 Ti 8GB model. And for the first time, I am seeing a 4060 Ti in top 10 best selling GPUs on Amazon. So despite having better cards from the Ampere family or the AMD RX 6000 lineup, the sad reality is that there are people who directly support Nvidia in times like this by buying their garbage products. And that is why we are once again at a point where the most selling 50 GPUs consists 80 to 90% of Nvidia cards. Sure, the Ampere cards are the way to go, but seeing 40 cards getting so much attention clearly shows that Nvidia knows that despite launching the 16GB model for $500, it will somehow succeed in selling this GPU after some time. Now moving on to the CPUs, recently we got a glimpse of Ryzen 8000 Strix Point APUs in AMD Linux as well as some open source codes. It is reported from video cards that AMD is working on a 12 and 16 core APU belonging to the Strix Point and Strix Halo family. These two are specifically for the mobile platforms, and there are reports that suggest that Strix Point may also arrive for desktop later. While the Strix Point 12 core APU is expected to be rated at 54 watts, the 16 core Strix Halo APU can have an operating power of up to 120 watts. These APUs will feature Zen 5 and Zen 5 C cores and will also feature Navi 3.5 architecture for integrated graphics, as we know from previous reports. Coincidentally, we saw another leak of Strix Point APU that made it to the Milky Way computing platform. From here, it has been confirmed that the APU will feature a total of 24 threads, which means 12 cores as we saw from the previous leak. So it is speculated that out of 12 cores, the configuration might be 4 Zen 5 and 8 Zen 5 C cores, or it can be 8 Zen 5 and 4 Zen 5 C cores. So it is definitely getting a big uplift in the core count over the Phoenix Point, but it also goes even further than that. It is expected to get 4 more compute units in integrated graphics, which is already faster due to a newer architecture. Apart from that, it will see double the Ryzen AI cores, which will simplify many operations without consuming much power. However, the Strix Halo is something that needs more attention. Not only it will launch the same year as Strix Point, but will also feature more cores, significantly higher compute units, and will also double the Ryzen AI cores. So in my opinion, Strix Halo will be the biggest jump in performance we have ever seen in APUs in recent times. Now it is not clear whether Strix Halo will make it to the desktop in the future, but if it does, then there will be no need for buying a discrete GPU if you are trying to play games at 1080p with 60 FPS. You can know more about these APUs in this video right here, where I share all the information about these APUs we have till now. Also, let me know what do you think about the RTX 4060 Ti 16GB card in the comments below, and subscribe for more videos like this. Make sure to turn on the notifications to never miss any future videos, and I will see you in the next one.